Hey, lurkers. So, you might have noticed that Friday there was no new episode. And not only was there not a new episode, but there was no mention anywhere on social media that there wouldn't be an episode. And that's because simply I forgot. I know that may sound strange. The last couple of weeks have been difficult for me to get motivated in much of anything. So I don't know whether I'm coming down with one of the many viruses that could be going around. I don't think so. Or if I'm just stressed and wigging out over the upcoming holiday. I don't know. I can tell you that part of the problem was Wednesday night I was thinking I need to go upstairs and record the episode for the week. And then I'll get that done, get some editing done on it, and finish it up Thursday, and it'll be ready to go on Friday. This is usually my typical week. It is crazy for me. There are scout meetings. There's all kinds of stuff that go on during the week. However, we were supposed to be getting an ice storm on Thursday. School for my son was on one of their virtual days, so he wasn't going to school. And because I work in a company that is seasonal, I am the only full-time employee through the winter. I decided, if he's not going to school, I'm not going to be going to work, because that's typically what happens. And I have all day Thursday to do the podcast. So I can chill out, watch TV on Wednesday, get up, record the podcast in the morning, take an hour or two to edit and polish it up, and have it set to release on Friday like usual and not have to rush about it. So that was my game plan. Gave myself a little bit of a break on Wednesday. So I get up on Thursday and there's no ice. None. The road was wet and I thought, well, we're on a main road and they did pre-treat, so perhaps, the main road's okay, but surely there is ice in the backyard. So I let the dogs out, and there is no ice on the backyard sidewalk at all. There's no ice on the steps out front. There's no ice on the sidewalk out front. It's just wet. My husband leaves for work. I decide I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to wait, see what happens, watch the news. And they're saying, oh, you got to be careful. It's freezing rain, blah, blah, blah. Still, the roads are just wet. So I opt to go in. And most of that decision was because it's payday on Thursday. So I went into work and ended up working my usual day and got home and had a lot of stuff to do. I had people over the house on Saturday, so I was trying to prepare for that. And all of a sudden I wake up on Friday and crap, didn't record the episode. And honestly, I have the notes and I'm ready to go with the new episode. A new episode is going to be a mysterious disappearance episode. And when I was running out of time, I thought, no big deal. I plan to re-release the Christmas episode I did with all the creepy Christmas cryptids. Krampus and the Belschnickel and stuff like that. So instead of doing a new episode Friday and the re-release on Monday, I thought, well, I'll just flip-flop them. Either way, nothing happened. Nothing happened. There was nothing for me. So this long-winded explanation is basically to introduce the re-release of the Christmas Cryptid episode from last year. And then I will record the Missing 411 Mysterious Disappearance cases. There are 2 cases in this episode. I will record that, get it edited, and as soon as I have that finished, it will be released immediately this week. And then I'll be putting together the stories for the Christmas Eve, or the Christmas Eve, because it'll be the 23rd, episode on Friday. So you actually will be getting, not 1, not 2, but kind of 2.5 episodes, because obviously today's is not brand new. It might be new to some of you. Anyway, I apologize. I promise I'm going to get my crap together and get back on track here. like I said, I thought I was like ahead of the game because my notes were finished and I was good, and I kept procrastinating. And normally I work really well under pressure, and it just really didn't work well for me this week. So I apologize profusely. And enough of me babbling about this. Here is the re-release of our Christmas Cryptid episode. If you would still like to send me a paranormal story, it does not have to be Christmas related. I'm just looking for any story, spooky. It can be a ghost story. It can be a time that you saw something weird in the sky. It could be a weird creature you saw. Anything like that. Anything weird, kooky, send it. It doesn't have to be long. It can be short. Just go ahead and send it. If you can send that by Wednesday, I will be getting my notes together by Wednesday and recording Wednesday night and Thursday. So if you have something you want to share, you don't have to include your name. It can be done anonymously. Email it at lurkpodcast.com or send it through direct message through any of our social media accounts. Again, I apologize for not getting a new episode out to you on time, but here is our Christmas episode from last year.
I fear not the dark itself, but what may lurk within it. Welcome to Lurk, bringing you creepy, strange, and bone-chilling stories, with your host, Jamie Jackson.
Hey lurkers, welcome to episode 35. Before we get into the meat of today's episode, I do want to bring up one housekeeping item. We are looking for your paranormal stories. I'm looking for ghost stories, creepy cryptid stories, UFO stories, whatever you have. Looking to include those in the Christmas Eve episode. I want to bring back the tradition of telling ghost stories on Christmas. So please email those to us at lurkpodcast@yahoo.com, or you can send a direct message through one of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to those on the website at lurkpodcast.com. Get those to us by December 17th, so I have time to throw them all together into an episode. Also, I want to point out that every now and then when I'm editing, I hear that you can sometimes hear a scratching noise in the background. I actually have a large red ear slider turtle in a 75-gallon tank behind me. And when I'm in the room, she thinks it means that she gets fed, so she makes noise to try to get my attention. So if you hear some funky scratching sounds, nobody's trying to claw their way out of the room, it's just the turtle wanting food. I also have a creaky chair. I try not to move, but that's really hard. But if you hear a creak, that's why. So in today's episode, episode 35, we're going to be talking about some of the European folklore surrounding Christmas. Like Krampus, for instance, who's becoming more popular in the United States. And coming up this Sunday, December 5th, we have Krampusnacht. Because we had an episode releasing just a few days prior to Krampusnacht, I thought it would be fun to talk about who or what Krampus is, and also include some of the other strange Santa Claus counterparts, or anti-Santas, if you will. First, let's talk about Krampus. Krampus is a rather interesting Christmas tradition. The name Krampus is derived from the German word Krampen, meaning claw, though if you look it up, it says it means pick or pickaxe, but still, that's sharp and claw-like as well. According to Wikipedia, Krampus is a horned anthropomorphic figure in Alpine folklore, who during the Christmas season scares children who have misbehaved. Some legends say that Krampus is the son of Hel, the Norse god of the underworld. And Krampus, basically, he helps out St. Nicholas, or Sankt Niklaus, which is the German way of saying it. I probably will use both interchangeably. I used to speak German nearly fluently, so just bear with me. I sometimes flip back and forth between St. Nicholas and Sankt Niklaus, so it's the same person. So together, these two, Krampus and Sankt Niklaus, they visit children on the eve of December 5th. If the child has been good, Sankt Niklaus gives them modest gifts of oranges, dried fruit, walnuts, and chocolate. You can keep the fruit and nuts, just give me the chocolate. The bad children get punishment. Krampus basically originated in, as I said, the Alpine regions in Europe, and he's thought to be pre-Christian. He's not thought, it's pretty much a given that he's pre-Christian. 1975, anthropologist John J. Honigman wrote, "As far as appearance, Krampus appears in many different variations, though most of these share common characteristics. He is typically covered in brown or black hair and has the hooves and horns of a goat. His long pointed tongue hangs out of his mouth, and he usually has fangs." He's a very pleasant fellow. It's sometimes said that he has one human foot and one cloven foot, though no one really knows why. Personally, I've never really encountered that particular Krampus. I've never encountered any Krampus, but I mean, basically that I've never really heard of the one with one human foot. Not that I've actually had to encounter Krampus because I'm a perfect angel. Just ask my parents. They'll tell you. I was an angel. I still am. So I don't know Krampus personally. But I've never heard of this one human foot, one cloven foot Krampus description. He often carries chains that are supposed to be a representation of binding the devil to the Christian church. He thrashes the chains for dramatic effect. The chains are sometimes covered in bells of varying sizes. He's sometimes seen with Rute, which in German means switch, and they're basically bundles of birch branches that he uses to swat children with, though some representations replace the Rute with a whip. In some areas, the Ruten bundles are presented to families where they're painted gold and displayed all year long in the home to remind children not to forget who Krampus is. If a big, hairy, horned, long-tongued creature came to my house at Christmas to beat the crap out of me if I was bad, I don't think I'd forget who he was. Just throwing that out there. In other traditions, and these are my son's favorite Krampus traditions, Krampus shows up with a sack or basket on his back that he uses to carry away bad children to be drowned, eaten, or simply transported to hell. Ethan, my son, likes to tell his nephews that Krampus shows up to eat bad children. No worries, because the oldest one has such an extensive cryptid book collection I borrow items from him, and the youngest one would most likely eat Krampus. So they're not afraid of this at all. They pretty much laugh at my son. In the 12th century, the Catholic Church attempted to ban Krampus and basically all pagan-related activities. But because of the terrain and sparse populations in the Alpine region, it wasn't something that could actually be policed, and the banishment never succeeded. In 1934 to 1938, when Austria was under fascist rule, they also tried to portray Krampus and the belief in Krampus as evil, but again, Krampus endured. Krampus celebrations have endured even today, where many areas in the Alpine region still hold Krampuslaufen or Krampus runs, which are basically a parade. People dress as Krampus, parading through town, scaring people, sometimes chasing them, sometimes hitting them with switches. You know, typical parade. A lot of time these celebrations include alcohol, as it is customary to give schnapps to Krampus. In case you're wondering, I prefer peach or sour apple schnapps when you see me in my Krampus attire, which my husband might say is every day. Whatever, just give me the schnapps and nobody gets hurt. There are some Krampus celebrations that include what they call switching stations, where, in the spirit of the holiday, people go to get spanked by people dressed as Krampus. There are so many bad jokes that I could make here, and none of them are appropriate for a family-type podcast. I mean, is that like a fetish? I wonder if that's an actual fetish. If you go to a switching station to stand in line to get your butt swatted with switches by Krampus. Is there a fetish for that? Send me an email if you know. Krampus is our first anti-Santa, which is celebrated December 5th, this coming Sunday. In case you're interested, On the night of December 5th, kids should put their shoes out, and if they've been good, St. Nicholas will fill them with treats such as fruits, nuts, and candy. Sankt Nicolaus, St. Nicholas Day, is December 6th, so you put your shoes outside on the eve of December 6th, which would be the 5th, and then when you wake up in the morning on December 6th on Monday, you should have some sort of treat in your shoes, or you're on your way to hell with Krampus. Either one. I don't know whichever one it's going to be. We have more anti-Santas here to discuss. The next one we're going to talk about is called the Bellschnickel. The Bellschnickel is a crotchety, fur-clad Christmas gift bringer. Unlike Krampus, who shows up separately from St. Nicholas to give St. Nick a hand with the naughty list, the Bellschnickel does not accompany St. Nicholas. Instead, he goes out alone. The Bellschnickel's clothes are usually tattered and torn and dirty, and he carried a switch to beat the bad children with. He also has a pocket full of cakes, candies, and nuts for the good children. He visits homes prior to Christmas to check up on the kids' behavior, usually showing up about 1 or 2 weeks before the actual Christmas holiday. He always seems to know which kids were bad, like maybe he has a list or something. When the Bellschnickel shows up and knocks on the door or window with his walking stick, children in the home would have to answer a question or sing some type of song. The Bellschnickel would then toss candies as rewards, but if the kids were too hasty to snatch up the treats, they got hit with a switch. Another variation of this says that the creepy face of the Bellschnickel would appear in the window at Christmas Eve. He would bang on the glass, and upon entering the home, he would spread treats out on the floor for the children. The good children were allowed to pick up treats, while the naughty children had to dodge the switch or whip while trying to get their treats. The Bellschnickel is described as loud and cantankerous, and is always dressed in furs. Some people see him as an amalgamation of Krampus and St. Nicholas. Often he's adorned with bits of foliage, deer antlers, and other natural decorations, and he usually has long, tangled hair. The Bellschnickel legend came to America with the Pennsylvania Dutch. So it's common in areas like in Pennsylvania, and I believe I saw mention of West Virginia. The Bellschnickel may have been based on an older German myth known as Knecht Ruprecht, which translates as farmhand Rupert, servant Rupert, or farmhand or servant Robert. Ruprecht began as a farmhand, though in some stories he was a foundling child that Nicholas raised from childhood. He wears a black or brown robe with a pointed hood and carries a staff and a bag of ashes. He sometimes has little bells on his clothes. Sometimes he rides on a white horse, and he's sometimes accompanied by fairies or men in blackened faces dressed as old women. I don't know why. I have no idea. According to tradition, Knecht Ruprecht asks children if they can pray, and if they can, they get gifts of sweets like apples, nuts, and gingerbread. If not, they get hit with his bag of ashes, which sounds far better than getting hit with a bunch of switches or a whip. Sometimes he leaves the bad children gifts of coal, sticks, and rocks, while the good children get treats from St. Nicholas. In the German version of The Simpsons, the dog's name is Knecht Ruprecht instead of Santa's Little Helper. And I'm telling you, because that little piece of information, which is completely useless, that might help you win trivia night. Or it could be Final Jeopardy. Either one. You might need it someday. Another of Sankt Nicolaus's helpers is Schwarze Peter, or Black Peter. This is a character that I actually learned about in German class in high school from Herr Flater. The character of Schwarze Peter has become quite controversial in recent years, because those dressing as his character typically dress in blackface with bright red lipstick and a curly black wig. That is because he is said to be a Moor who comes to help Sankt Nicolaus. In recent years, he's been called Sooty Pete, where there is no blackface, only marks to depict soot from the chimney, which makes more sense and is far better to do. Like Knecht Ruprecht or Krampus, Schwarzenpeter was in charge of dealing with the bad children. In the weeks leading up to December 6th, the feast of St. Nicholas, Schwarzenpeter would visit children, rewarding the good with small treats and beating the bad children or taking them away. So basically, he acts just like Krampus, but he's not a scary monster, he's just a dirty guy. Much like Knecht Ruprecht, who is also sooty and dirty, and the Belschnickel, though the Belschnickel acts as both reward person and beat the crap out of you person. And Knecht Ruprecht only used the bag of ashes, so that's not as bad as a whip or a switch. So we're going to head on to our next few little anti-Santas. You know, nothing says Merry Christmas quite like a couple of Christmas cannibals and a belly-slitting witch. But that's what we've got coming up now. Le Père Fouettard, who is also known as Father Whipper or Old Man Whipper, is known to accompany St. Nicholas on December 6th. I don't know who comes up with the name Father Whipper or Old Man Whipper, but it really just doesn't sound very good. So, Le Père Fouettard gives out lumps of coal and or beatings to children who have been bad. The legend is that Le Père Fouettard was an innkeeper. Some variations say he was a butcher, but most of them say he was an innkeeper. And he sees 3 kids on their way to religious boarding school one day, and he thinks that they look like they might have some money on them. So along with his wife, he captures the 3 kids. Before I go any further, these next stories, they deal with cannibalism. Probably not a good story for younger kids to listen to for Christmas, because, you know, we don't want to scare the literal crap out of them. Though Krampus pretty much says he's going to eat them, but whatever. Anyway, so, Le Père Fouettard captures these 3 children. He then proceeds to drug them, rob them, slit their throats, and he cuts them up into pieces. He and his wife then salt them and put them in barrels, saving them for later. St. Nicholas discovers the crime, resurrects the children, and returns them to their parents. St. Nicholas is a very powerful man if he's able to do that, because they were salted and cut up in a barrel. And he's able to put them back together, send them home to their parents. What happens if you don't put them together with the right parts? Afterwards, after St. Nick saves the kids and sends them home, Père Fouettard repents and becomes St. Nicholas's helper. There's another version that says Sankt Niklaus forced Père Fouettard to become his helper as punishment. And honestly, that is the version that I think is the most likelier scenario. Not that I think chopping up children, having them resurrected and sent back home is a likely scenario by any stretch of the imagination. But if somebody's I don't think he would be very repentant, like, oh, I feel bad now, I'm gonna come help you. Then again, he beats children. It might be something he would want to do, I don't know. So, Père Fouettard is depicted as a man with a sinister-looking face, dressed in dark robes, with scraggly hair and a long beard. He has a whip for whipping children, and a large stick or a bundle of switches. Some say he wears a wicker backpack that's used to carry off the bad children. He's known as the French Christmas cannibal, associated with areas of France and Belgium. In the 1930s, Père Fouettard makes his appearance in the United States as Father Flog or Spanky. I swear I am not making that up. His female counterpart is named Mother Flog, because we can't have original names here. Mother and Father Flog. Spanky. Mrs. Spanky. I don't know. The pair didn't really have anything to do with Christmas. They just punished bad children all the time. They gave specific punishments to fit the crime, like cutting out someone's tongue for lying. It's a little harsh. I'd rather just their underwear catch on fire. Or their pants. What's a liar, pants on fire? I'd just rather their pants catch on fire. Though if your pants are on fire, your underwear is probably on fire too. So, cutting out somebody's tongue's probably a lot worse than washing out their mouth with soap. Next, we have the other Christmas cannibal. And he's known as the child-eating scarecrow of Christmas. I'm not making this up. Really, I'm not. Hans Trapp is well known in the area of Alsace-Lorraine at the France and Germany border. Hans Trapp lived in the 1400s in that region. He was a rich, powerful, and merciless man, feared by the people. His thirst for power and wealth was so great it led to his decision to make deals with the devil to gain even more power and wealth. Just a side note, the vast majority of deals with the devil do not end in anything good, so I don't really recommend them. These deals with Satan resulted in Hans Trapp being excommunicated by the Pope himself. His lands and wealth were confiscated, and he fled to the mountains of Bavaria in Germany, where he managed to build a shack out of sticks. He was basically left to spend his days alone, being pissed off and plotting revenge. The solitude he endured drove him insane, and he eventually began fantasizing about eating human flesh. So Hans comes up with a plan. He disguises himself by stuffing his clothes with straw, and he begins stalking the desolate roads and woods near his home. I don't understand how straw disguises you, but okay. He eventually happens upon a 10-year-old shepherd boy, who he stabs with a sharpened stick. He drags the body back to his shack, cuts it up, and starts roasting it on the fire. But before he's able to actually eat, he's killed with a divine lightning bolt. But that's not the end of Hans Trapp. Now dead, his spirit still roams, and children are warned that the ghost of Hans Trapp is walking the earth in the scarecrow disguise looking for children. But he's not roaming alone. No, St. Nicholas took Hans Trapp as a companion. He accompanies the saint and punishes bad children. Apparently, like Père Fouettard, Hans Trapp was seeking to be redeemed, and that led him to help out St. Nicholas. He tries to persuade naughty kids to change their ways, unlike what he did. If they don't change their ways, he abducts them and carries them off to the woods where they're never seen again. He also is said to go around marking children he wants to eat for Christmas. Would it be bad to mess with kids and draw an X on them or something? Yeah? Okay. So you might think that this is a crazy fairy tale legend with no truth behind it, and you would be wrong. There was a knight named Hans von Trotha who lived in 1450 and died in 1503, and he owned 2 castles in the France-Germany territory. He got into a dispute with the church over property. He didn't get property granted to him that he wanted, so he dammed up the river and wouldn't let the local village have water. Then he tore down the dam and flooded the town, which led to economic collapse. The Pope ended up getting involved, and he excommunicated von Trotha. Hans von Trotha, unlike Hans Trapp, did not end up destitute, and there's no record he actually tried to eat anybody. Another alias of Hans Trapp, however, is the Black Knight. I wonder if that's where Scooby-Doo got the idea for their Black Knight from. Last but not least, we're going to talk about the Christmas Witch, or the Belly Slitter. Perta the Slitter was a jolly merry soul, with a big long knife and a pointy nose and 2 eyes made out of coal. That doesn't really fit. I don't know that I'm going to keep that in there. The Christmas Witch is named Frau Perta, but she goes by many names to include Perta, Berta, Berta, and Bertha. She's also called Spinnstubenfrau or spinning room lady. I can say the German perfectly, but I mess up the English. Not sure what that's all about. Spinnstubenfrau or spinning room lady. She is associated with the Epiphany, which is on January 6th, and it's also the last day of the 12 days of Christmas. In case you're wondering, the 12 days of Christmas do not mean the first 12 days of the month. It actually starts being counted from the time of Christmas, and it ends January 6th. The legend of Frau Perta was popularized by Jacob Grimm, who was the eldest of the Grimm brothers. Frau Perta is an old woman with a very long, pointed, almost beak-like nose, with warts on it. Of course, it's got to have warts. She's dressed in rags, has a cane, and she also carries a long knife under her dress. It's said that she has one splayed foot, possibly from using the treadle on a spinning wheel for so long. That basically means that it's spread out. The toes are super spread out, and the treadle on a spinning wheel, it's like a pedal. You have to keep pushing up and down to get the wheel moving. Other people say that the splayed foot is actually a goose foot. And I've even seen where she's associated with Mother Goose, which is a little creepy. She can't stand people who work on January 6th, which is a holy day. And she can't stand laziness in general. In fact, you better have your spinning done by January 6th. If it's not done, she comes in and tramples your half-spun fibers with her goose foot and then sets everything on fire. And as an added bonus, if your house is a mess and you forget to leave out the customary bowl of porridge for her, she'll go into your bedroom, disembowel you, and replace your guts with rock, straw, and garbage. She also captures and eats children. And if a child was found to be a liar, Frau Perchta would scrape out their eyes with glass, and then the others said it would scrape out their tongue. I saw both versions. The tongue seems a little bit more appropriate for lying. She is attended by an army of lost souls that includes demonic-looking Perchten, which visually are identical to Krampus. There are Perchtenlaufen, which are the same as Krampenlaufen, where people dress as the Perchten and parade through the street, but this is often done to drive off Perchta's evil spirits and clear a path for good fortune in the new year. So there's not much whipping going on. She's also known to be part of the wild hunt, flying through the night skies. But Perchta has a dual nature of sorts. She was known as a goddess in the Alpine regions, and her name, Berchta, means the bright one. I believe the Epiphany is referred to as Berchtentag, which would be like the bright day. She was a protector of women and children, and was associated with birch trees. She watched over the forests and all the animals in it. She was also a spirit guide who led the dead into the afterlife, and had the special duty of caring for Heimchen, which are children who died in infancy. But the church wanted to do away with pagan things, and began changing her into Perchta, the belly slitter. Either way, I'm going to make sure the house gets clean by January 6th. I don't need my belly full of rocks and garbage. I fill it with garbage all by myself. I don't need anybody to cut it open to do that. Side note, when I was doing my research, I had 47 Krampus and Frau Perchta ideas on Pinterest come up in my search. I didn't look at it, but made me laugh because apparently Pinterest has everything. I don't know what the ideas are. I don't really want to know Frau Perchta ideas. 47 ways to slit somebody's belly and stuff it with rocks. I don't know. So that's going to do it for this episode, which is a little bit shorter than our usual episode, but I am in full get ready for the Christmas holiday mode. My husband did put the lights on the house. You can see it from the space station. Another reminder, we're looking for your personal stories. Please get those sent to us by December 17th. And if you don't want your name used, that's fine. I would never use the last name in anything. I would only use first names, but if you don't even want that associated with your story, that's totally fine. You can just let me know in your message or your email, and I will not refer to your name, or I'll make one up or whatever. It can be completely anonymous. So, as always, you can find Lurk episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or at lurkpodcast.com. Our website has the links to our social media platforms, so please give us a like or follow. I try to post relevant photos for episodes on social media, and there's also some non-relevant stuff there as well. Remember, we have merch at lurkpodcastmerch.com. It makes a great Christmas present. And until next time, keep lurking. Perchta the Slitter was a jolly merry soul, with a big long knife and a pointy nose and 2 eyes made out of coal.